Welcome, everyone, to our live workshop on how to simplify your literature review writing with Paperpal. This is a slightly new and longer format for us, one in which we're hoping you can try it out as the demonstration happens on screen. And we've also frequently received requests to showcase practical applications of Paperpal for academic writing. So, in response, we decided to try this new format, a sort of practical series beginning with writing literature reviews. So, we encourage you to fully engage with the session and provide feedback, which will continually help us improve the series. While I'm sure you're all eager to jump in, let's get started with introductions. I'm Nolita Coelho, your host for today, and I head up the product division at Paperpal. And joining us as main presenter for today's workshop is Dr. Sowmiya Rani. Welcome, Sowmiya.
Thank you, Nolita.
Sowmiya has a PhD in biotechnology and is an accomplished academic editor in the life sciences. Not only does she have several research publications to her credit, but she has also edited over 1,500 scientific manuscripts from authors globally. And this gives her firsthand insight into the struggles authors face in the writing process. What excited us and me the most when inviting Dr. Sowmiya to lead today's session was her expertise in leveraging AI tools for research. So she's conducted many such workshops and delivered lectures at over 100 prestigious institutions, both in India and overseas, focusing on the role of AI in scientific publishing, advancements in teaching methodologies, and AI applications in healthcare. But before I hand over to Soumya, and I'm waiting to do that, there are a few things I'd like to cover for you, which can help this workshop go through smoothly. So just move your attention over to the presentation on screen. Firstly, what you can expect from today's session is we'll start off with a bit of housekeeping, head into the main workshop. We have a special surprise for our audience, so don't run away after the workshop. And then we'll spend the last 20-30 minutes answering questions that you'll have. It will be difficult for us to take questions during the workshop because there are so many of you attending today. But we will have pauses where you can try out what's been demonstrated. And if there are questions that do come to mind or hiccups that you encounter, you can see on the right of your screen, there is a Q&A section. So make sure to head over to that section and drop in your questions. We also have members of the product team who will be supporting you entirely through this workshop on chat. So you can use the chat window as well to interact with them and keep the comments, the feedback flowing. During Soumya's demonstration, you might also find it useful to click on the Zoom and watch it in full screen. So that makes sure that you can see whatever's happening on screen very clearly, and consider using headphones for the best audio experience. We will also share a full recording after the workshop, so don't worry. In case you miss anything, you can always go back and watch what was demonstrated. Most importantly, given that it's a live workshop and we want you to try as Soumya demonstrates, you need to get onto Paperpal. In case you haven't already, I'll just walk you through how you can do that. And what's more important is we have exclusive Prime access to all of the workshop attendees, which means that you have unlimited free access to all of the features to try out whatever Soumya throws your way. Now, if you are already a Prime member, then simply log into your account. But if you are new, so signing up for the first time, or currently on a free plan, then just follow the steps that I'll take you through. You would have either received an email or the team will be sharing instructions on chat. So take a look at those instructions and click on the link that's mentioned in the instructions. Now, once you do that, you will be asked to either create your account or log in. Now, once you've successfully logged in, it will automatically direct you to the My Account screen with this little pop up that will show up on your screen saying enter activation code. Now, this activation code has been shared in the email and in the instructions on chat. What you can do is copy that activation code, paste it in this box, and submit it. Once you've done that, Prime should be activated. Now, it might take a few minutes for the Prime access to get in. If you're having issues, just log out, log back in again, just give it a minute or so, And if you're still having any other problems, then reach out to our team on chat, or you can write to hello@paperpal.com. Once your Prime access is in place, head over to the home screen and create a new document from where you can follow the demonstration. This Prime access is available not just during the workshop, but even after until the end of day tomorrow, that's March 21st, which means that you can continue practicing with the recording and whatever you see today over the next 2 days. So, with that, what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes to dive into a quick overview of PayPal because we have many of you joining for the first time today, and like to spend a little bit talking about what we stand for. So, PaperPal started off mainly as a tool that helped you polish your draft paper, essay, or manuscript. Now, its biggest strength is the ability to understand academic context. What do I mean by that? Its ability to understand technical terminology, writing styles, and this is across 1,300 fields of study. Now, how did we achieve that? PaperPal is born out of Editage, which is our parent company, where expert human editors have been improving research manuscripts and technical content for over 22 years. Now, we combined that 22 years of human editing expertise and combined it with advanced machine learning. Now, with this, we created a best in class AI editing tool for academic text. Now, this technology doesn't just power PaperPal, but it also powers PaperPal's pre flight submission checks that run in the journal submission workflow for over 500 journals worldwide. Now, we didn't stop there because our vision for PaperPal was much bigger. Our mission is really to help every individual that sits down to write daily for those 30 or 60 minutes, irrespective of whether English is your first language or not, to have the most productive writing experience. And not just that, but how can writing be something you enjoy and look forward to rather than dread and procrastinate? So, over the last year, we've transformed PaperPal from merely a polishing tool to one that can assist with inspiring your writing. And you'll see that today, whether you want to brainstorm ideas, develop your research question, get research, then it can actually help you in the process of constructing your draft and right up to the finishing line where you want to polish it up and even beyond. Now, today you'll see Dr. Sowmiya demonstrate exactly how these features come together in real life while drafting a literature review. So, with that, over to you, Sowmiya.
Thank you, Nolita. So let me start by sharing my screen. And good evening, everyone. Yet another welcome from my side personally. So is my screen visible? Is everything fine on my screen?
Yes, we can see it in search. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So let us imagine that I'm a researcher, a young researcher who's trying to write their first paper or say one of the earlier papers. So that is the use case that I would want to go ahead with today. And where do we actually start? So if I'm a young researcher trying to write a literature review, maybe the first thing that I have at hand is an idea. It's a very base idea, a core idea that I can kind of formulate in one or two sentences. And from these one or two sentences, I have to reach to a level where I have, say, a literature review of 5,000, 6,000 words or even more, depending on what kind of document I'm talking about. And how exactly can I leverage PaperPal to do this? And that's the flow through that we'll be seeing for today. And I'll be using the PaperPal web editor for this purpose. And this is the web editor that you're seeing. You just log into PaperPal on your web, on your browser, wherever you are. And this is the home page where you land. And I'm going to start off with a new web document. This is a blank page, and blank pages are always scary when you want to write, and they kind of hinder your thought process even sometimes. But then when that blank page happens to be on PaperPal, this is no longer the case. And for today's use case, I have picked a topic that is pretty close to my heart, which happens to be how intermittent fasting as a strategy can help in managing all your non-communicable diseases, all your metabolic disorders like type diabetes, for instance. So intermittent fasting is this technique where people fast for 16 hours or set number of hours in a day and then eat within a small window. And this is touted as a good strategy, lifestyle change to manage your metabolic disorders. And let me say that I'm looking to write a literature review as a part of my research article or otherwise, where I want to bring together literature that tells me how intermittent fasting can help manage diabetes. So this is the one liner with which I'm coming into Paperpal, and I can directly start typing in this idea into the web editor. That is one way to go about it. Or I could pick this specific feature called Write, which is integrated into your writing canvas as well, and start writing. And when I want to start writing something, here again, there are two different ways in which I can do it. Maybe I have been reading about this topic for some time and I have more than a one liner. So, one case is where I have just a one line statement from which I want to start. The second case is where I already have a set of notes and I want to use these notes to start writing. Let's start with the first option. So, I have this thought in my head as to read and see how this thought of intermittent fasting help in managing diabetes. So how does intermittent fasting type 2 diabetes, especially in the young adult population? Okay. And right here, I have an option where I can ask Paperpal to explain this concept to me, or say I can ask Paperpal to expand on this thought process, give me some more ideas, brainstorm with me to come up with some other features, some other tangents that I have not thought about, or help me build this skeleton based on which I can start my writing process. So it could be expand, it could be write a paragraph on, you can pick either of this. Maybe I'll pick write a paragraph here, and then expand this because the sentence is already there. I'll start with the expand feature. And now what Paperpal does here is it picks this concept and it tries to bring together a small paragraph which will tell me the possibility or the answer to this question, or the associated ideas for this particular sentence that I have provided Paperpal. And here Paperpal gives me three different answers, more or less the same content, but then presented in different ways sometimes. And here, the most important question that you should be asking yourself is, how do I proceed from here? So now that Paperpal has given me a paragraph on this topic, what is the next step? So possibly you can copy paste the answer that comes from Paperpal. You can accept this answer. You can insert this answer into your writing canvas. That is one way to go about it. Or you could use the content that came out of Paperpal as an inspiration, as a suggestion to write your own content. You can do it either ways. And a second question that pops up at this point is this content AI generated? Obviously, the content is AI generated. It will be flagged as such in majority of the cases because Paperpal is an AI tool, but that does not discredit the information that comes out of the tool. But rather, if you can use this as a starting point, as a suggestion, and use this as a skeleton, there is no question of this content showing up as plagiarism, showing up as AI tagged content, because this will be the skeleton based on which you will write, you will edit, and the content will evolve, eventually leading to something that you wrote on your own. So this is the first use case where I can keep asking these questions. I can keep asking Paperpal to expand on this idea further. And paragraph after paragraph, I keep getting more and more ideas. I can revise my question to get better ideas. I can explore new tangents and so on. This is one way through which you can overcome your writer's block and start with that first chunk of writing. A second way in which you can use this write feature is when you already have a set of notes at hand and you want to start with those notes. The base, the skeleton already exists. You're not starting from a blank page, but then you want the, excuse me, So where you want the notes to form the base of your writing process. That is when you go into this feature called write, which is pretty much the same thing that you see here. And you have an option where you can add notes. So I already have a set of notes here. And then let me say, so what does this notes look like? So this is what my notes look like. These are just broken thoughts, just some pointers, some bullets on the different types of metabolic disorders that can benefit from intermittent fasting. I have uploaded this note into Paperpal, and now Paperpal has generated these paragraphs that I asked for. And now I can either choose to have this information on the right hand panel, and the panel here is also dynamic, which means you get to decide on which of these two windows, which of the half windows that you are actually more comfortable working with. And you can also, of course, copy paste it into your writing canvas, but then make sure that you're working with this as the starting material. One thing that you would notice with write feature is write feature, the purpose here is to brainstorm, the purpose here is to expand on your ideas, though the information is coming from legitimate sources. The sources are not always cited, and that is okay, because here we are just talking brainstorming, we are just throwing around ideas, we are just building the skeleton based on which the literature review is going to develop. But when we move on to the second stage, this might not really be enough. Just having the information would not suffice when I'm trying to write something as formal as a literature review. I want something more. I want my information to come from valid sources, from the right set of journals, and I also want all the information to have appropriate citations and also generate a references so that I know that this information can go on directly onto my literature review, or it can form the base of my literature review. So I'm going to pause here for 2 to 3 minutes to allow you to check this particular feature called write. So how do you do that? You're going to start Paperpal, and then you can start directly typing into the writing canvas, and then you see this plus icon here. When you click on it, you get to access all the different features of write, which can be as simple as the expand feature that I showed you, or you can start with write a paragraph on and then include the title or the single sentence. You can ask for more ideas, you can ask for say uh, continuing the writing process, or for the key takeaways when you have sufficient quantum of text on your writing canvas. Yeah. So take 2 to 3 minutes to explore the write feature. When we come back, we'll move on to the next phase, where we want the tool to help us write, help us gather information, but then also come up with the right literature backing in the form of citations and references, which will happen through the next feature called research and cite. But for now, focus on the right feature, explore the feature, and if you have questions, you can always drop it on the chat box.
I see many of you asking questions on how do you find citations, references, and cite them in a specific format like APA, etc. That will be covered in the next segment by Dr. Soumya. So just hold on for that and brainstorm with PayPal for the moment. Thanks.
Yeah, right. One step at a time. So the last 30 seconds or so. Okay. So let's continue exploring the other features. We are at the second phase of our writing. So we have sufficiently brainstormed our ideas. We have got the skeleton. We have different tangents that we would like to pursue. And now we are at a stage where we want help not just with the writing, but then also some help with actually finding the literature and having information that is backed by literature. At this stage, you can use Paperpal in two different ways. If you are already a researcher who has some experience with writing a paper, then you know what an introduction looks like, what a discussion section of a research article looks like, and what are the different things that are expected of you when you have to formulate a literature review or synthesize a literature review. In such cases, you can directly move into this feature called Research Site, where you can ask very specific questions, more tangential, more in depth questions that will help you glean information from the right papers. And here, PaperPal allows you to not just ask the questions, you also have control over where you want the answers to come from. Say, for instance, do you want answers only from open access papers? You don't want answers just from the abstract in case of subscription papers, for instance. How do you want the journal quality for the answers to be? Say, in my case, I would prefer that my answers come from Q1 journals, Q2 journals, and I would definitely steer very clear away from Q4 journals, for instance. And then you also can pick the publication date. Do you want information only from the past 3 years? Or do you want to go back in history and find something that was buried down 10, 15 years or so? How about the indexing? How about the geographical limitation? So you have control to pick your preferences, and based on your preferences, any question you ask, the references and citations will adhere to the preferences that you have set. Now I'm going to ask a slightly refined question. Say, for instance, I want to know how does intermittent fasting help in managing blood sugar in type 2 diabetes in young adults, for instance. Yeah, so I can hit on search, and this feature, the use is pretty much similar to what you would do with the right feature, but the difference is in the response. The response is much more refined. It is much more formal when you look up the language, and then all the key points also come up with citations and a generated reference list at the end of the response, making it much more directly useful when it comes to writing. So this feature can be used for creating drafts, for creating more formal drafts, but then it can also be used for finding the right literature for your particular topic. So this is the response that I have. Unlike the response from the right feature, you can see that this response actually has all the citations included in. And as I scroll down, I can see that all these references, these papers that were cited within my response, the references are also listed just below. And if I do choose to insert this insert this response directly into my writing canvas and then start working from there, I can just copy this and paste it into my writing canvas. Now what you will notice is that the citations are retained even when you move it to your left hand side. Not just that, when you scroll down, you'll also see that the references are the key references, at least they are populated as a list just below your writing canvas. You also have a choice where you can change the reference style, and Paperpal right now, as I believe, supports almost all the different reference styles available with free reference managers like Zotero, for instance. That is easily 10,000 different styles. So what happens when I want to change the style of these references? Say I don't want the APA style, instead I want the Vancouver style of references. I can just search for the style, not just prominent styles. You can also search for styles of very specific journals, apply the style, and your reference list is automatically converted to the style of your choice. The in-text citations have also been subsequently changed. Now, this feature helps you manage your references, convert your styles also right within the web editor on Paperpal. Not just that, say for instance, you don't want these references to only sit within these responses and drafts. Maybe you want to save some of these papers onto your reference manager so that you can refer back to them, use them later on. Now, this storage of your literature can also happen within Paperpal in this feature called library. So you scroll down, you see a reference that you're interested to have for your other reading as well, to use later on as well. So you have these three dots just below the reference, you see, click on it. Sorry. You don't have to do that because there's a direct feature called add to library here. So just click on add to library and your reference gets added to library here. So you'll see this reference called Zhang et al. 2024. What was the title? The title is How Does Intermittent Fasting Help? Okay. So anytime you want to find the paper, you can just start typing in the bits and pieces from the title or the author's name, and you can find your literature. So on the research and cite feature, you got to start off with a question, a more in-depth question than you would use at the initial ideation phase. You get a proper response that is backed by citations, backed by a proper reference list. You can save your references into the library. You also have an option where you can change the style of your references automatically, both for the in-text citations as well as on your reference list, right on your writing canvas. So this is the first use case where you already know what you're looking for, where you already have a structure, you have a template. Now, what if I'm a young researcher? I have no idea what has to go into my introduction section. I'm writing a research paper. I know that I have to do a literature review and then bring this information into my introduction sections and discussion sections. For instance, I really do not know what all go into my introduction section. In such case, there is help for you as well in this feature called templates. You can simply click on templates and then you can use this option called outline. Say, for instance, today I'm trying to write a research article and I'm specifically trying to write this section called the introduction. And the field of study here is limited, but you don't have to worry about it. Irrespective of which field you're from, you can simply pick one of these fields and your questions will still be answered. Paperpal will still work similarly across the fields, though the drop down menu here is a bit limited. So, say I want to write the introduction section, I'm going with the same prompt. Yeah, let me pick this prompt for instance. And this is what I want to write on my introduction, but I'm not sure how I can frame my introduction section. So now Paperpal will not write your entire introduction for you, but rather it gives you the skeleton as to what fit into the introduction. So I can say insert this here, and now I have a proper template that tells me that an introduction will start with a background. It has to talk about the topic importance, the knowledge gap, rational research question. So the entire introduction section is broken down for me into small manageable bits. Not just that, I also have a small pointer sentence that tells me what goes under each of these subtopics, and this will really help me to build on my introduction section. Similarly, you can use this feature for different sections. You can also use this feature for different kinds of articles. And this outline section or the outline feature can come in really handy when you are starting from scratch, when you're a young researcher. You need help learning how to design different sections of different kinds of papers. So, time for that small 2 to 3 minute break to allow you to explore the research and site feature more. You can also explore the template feature, especially focus on the outlines. The rest of it, we'll come to it in a while. So, your 3 minute break starts now. And as always, keep adding those questions to the chat box if you have any, and someone from the team will take it up as we go along.
Hi, Soumya. We can still see your screen in case you want to stop sharing for a moment. Thanks.
Um, yeah.
Just to reiterate, we will be sharing the recording of the session, just keeping the pace going so that we can finish up and take questions in the time we have allotted. So do try and follow along as much as possible. Soumya is going to cover quite a lot.
So, last few seconds before we wind up this phase
Yeah.
and then move on to the next.
Yeah. I see many questions coming in around the chat PDF. And I think that's what you're going to cover next. So we'll wait for that for the next segment as Sowmiya gets to that.
So where are we now? We finished the ideation stage where we brainstormed ideas. We moved on to the next stage where we created our primary drafts, zero drafts, however you want to call them. Now let us imagine that I'm creating these drafts. I'm interacting with the tool I'm trying to write. And here, say I asked a question. Where is my question? It's here. And as I'm reading through the response that Paperpal gives me, I also see these references. And Paperpal has summarized the key information from these references. But what if I want to interact with some of these papers more closely? What if I have much more questions? Some of these papers are going to be key papers for your research, or for my research in this case. And I want to pick some of these papers on the library, and then I want to ask more questions. I want to know the paper. I want to have the original source, have a look into the original source and ask more questions. That is where you have this option called chat PDF, which will work on some of the papers directly. So in some cases, when you look into the reference list on the research insight option, when you see this icon called chat, you get to directly chat with the paper. In cases where that is not possible, you can still go to the original journal site, pick the PDF if it is available, and then you can upload the PDF to chat with the PDF later. For convenience sake, I'm going to pick a paper that already has chat enabled. So all you have to do is just click on the chat button or the chat icon you see below a paper, and the full text of the paper is uploaded into the chat PDF window. From here, it looks the same. So you either populate the PDF directly from Paperpal, or you upload the PDF by yourself. Both of them ultimately land on your chat PDF, where you get to have summary of these papers. You get to ask for related papers. You want to say, explore the direction that this paper takes a bit more. That is also possible. And then there are some predefined questions, which are the most commonly asked questions that someone might have when they are trying to read a paper. You can pick on the predefined questions to interact better with the paper. Say you want to know what are the strengths of the study, what are the limitations of the study, why is the study significant, or you have questions of your own. So what was the kind of statistical analysis that was used on this paper, for instance? So you ask your question, and this feature here will help you pick the answers from within this particular paper. Yeah. So you can keep asking follow-up questions to understand a paper better. So on the research and cite feature, you got to get formal responses with citations and references. You got to save your literature, change the reference style and citation style as you write, as you complete your paper on the web editor of Paperpal. You also get to interact with the literature within the feature, which means all of this can happen within the web editor interface without you having to ever leave the interface once all the papers are added onto the chat feature, possibly sometime later. Yeah. So the next part is where, let us assume that we have completed writing our manuscript. And this is a stage where you have used AI to give you an idea, to give you the outlines, to suggest content for your paper, but then the majority of the writing still comes from you. The content out of Paperpal is not plagiarized, it is still AI. And we want to slowly phase out the content that came directly out of Paperpal, but rather build on it, bring in your own style of writing, bring in your own critical thinking process to it, and expand on it. And considering that not all of us come from countries where English is our first language, maybe our arguments do have errors in terms of language, in terms of sentence structures, for instance. That is when we move into the third phase of our writing, which happens to be the proofreading or the editing stage. And here again, Paperpal has a very simple solution for you in the edit feature. I'm just going to go copy a simple sample sentence, sample document, and then say this is something that I wrote within Paperpal. And now I want to see if there are any language errors on this content that I have written. And what kind of errors do Paperpal usually catch? One good thing I like about Paperpal is that you don't just get to see the errors, just see the corrections for the errors, but then you also get to learn what kind of errors exist in a particular instance, and this would help you hone on your writing skills on your language later on, I believe. So you get to see all the errors properly labeled with possibilities of corrections as well. So you can scroll down under each of these errors and vet if you want to really make this change, because sometimes in different fields some of these errors are not exactly errors, they are kind of accepted, tolerated. So do you really want to make the change? The control still vests in you, and you get to decide which of these changes will actually happen within your writing canvas. There is no option where you can make a blanket change to the entire document, at least not under this feature. And I would also suggest that you don't make blanket changes. It makes more sense if you go through the individual suggestions and then make changes accordingly. You can also check your manuscript for say the consistency issues that could arise in manuscripts, say the difference in languages or difference in terminologies, for instance. And then comes this feature called rewrite, which can help you rewrite your sections. For instance, say there are certain sections where you have derived too much of information from existing literature. There has been an instance of too much of copy paste when you were building the draft, and now you want to rewrite to make sure that the essence is retained but the words are not, so that the content does not get flagged as plagiarized content. Or say there are instances where you want to reduce the word count, that is when you use this feature called trim. Or there are instances where your writing or certain sections of the paper have used colloquial language, for instance, and you want to make sure that all the terminologies, the structures, they align with the academic writing requirements, and that is where make academic comes in hand. Synonyms is a great feature in cases where you have used a word too many times and it has become redundant in your document and you want to find a good alternative. This can also work in cases where you have words that are really informal or colloquial and you want to find good academic alternatives. In cases, both of this work. So both make academic and synonyms work. Make academic kind of works on a much larger content, whereas synonyms can work with something as small as a single word or a phrase which you would like to convert. So this is the proofreading phase where you get to use Paperpal to catch errors on your writing, to learn what kind of errors you have made on your document, to correct these errors based on the suggestions from Paperpal, but then also work with content which could potentially have a high flag score through paraphrasing, reduce word counts, especially on sections like the abstract, for instance, make academic, and then also find synonyms for your writing. So here I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to explore the edit feature and the rewrite feature before we move on to the next stage, where we are going to assume that we have brainstormed, we have written our paper, we have checked our paper for all the language issues, and then now we are ready for the next checks and actually ready for the journal submission. So 2 to 3 minutes to check out the edit and the rewrite feature.
Thanks, Soumya. There are a few questions on chat with regards to security and confidentiality of the content that you're pasting or the PDFs that you're uploading to PaperPal. So, just want to come in here and say that any PDF that you upload to PaperPal is 100% secure. It's only available to you in your account. Similarly, any content that you use to develop or write or paste into PaperPal, again, is 100% secure. So, PayPal does not use any of this content, any of the prompts also that you would put into PayPal for any kind of AI training. So this is a basic commandment and a principle that we follow. So rest assured, you can actually use PaperPal to draft your entire article, right from brainstorming to the end outline and the end draft directly here. No concerns about security.
So the last 10-15 seconds before we head on to the next feature. Yeah. So where are we? We are at a stage where we have our final draft. We have proofread the draft and we are ready. Now, PaperPal has options which will help you generate some of the sections of your paper, like the title, the abstract, for instance, and also help you with creating your cover letters and highlights. So we are going back into the templates option, and here you see options where after you finish your paper, you need some help with brainstorming on the title. Not generate the actual title that will go onto your journal submissions, but rather brainstorm, play around with multiple ways in which you can come up with that catchy title, because the title and abstract is what is available to your readers. Title and abstract has to appeal to a much larger audience, and these are like your the intro statements that will bring in the footfall to your papers. You want to do it right, especially if you are not a native English speaker. You definitely need help in these places. So let's assume that the paper is ready, and now I want to generate a title. I want to have some options, some choices which I can pick out of. So now, by default, PayPal gives you 5 different titles. You can keep retrying this. You can keep playing around with the content on your writing canvas. You can just pick and choose certain sections of your paper which you find are really relevant, which you find should be highlighted on your title and on your abstracts. So play around with the content on your paper, and then use this feature called title for generating multiple drafts of your title, which will help you arrive at your actual title. Similarly, you can also generate abstracts, and this will help you quickly have a draft from which you can build on your actual abstracts. So this is the draft abstract, runs somewhere close to 200 words normally, I believe. And then you can generate keywords. Some of the journals want you to provide a plain language summary. That is also possible to get suggestions from PaperPal. Or say, for instance, you're submitting to a journal from Elsevier. Several of the Elsevier journals want you to give these highlights, which are 3 to 5 bullet points, each of them 85 characters long or so, for which you can garner ideas. You can generate these draft highlights under these highlight feature. PaperPal also has solutions to help you generate any type of email, but then there are also solutions which will help you create very specific emails that you would require when you're trying to submit your manuscript to journals. One of the first things that you would require is writing a cover letter. So you can give in all the necessary information like the name of the editor-in-chief, the manuscript title, the journal, author details, and maybe a brief summary of your paper here, and hit on generate, and PaperPal will generate your entire properly designed cover letter that you can use for your journal submission. And also for other instances, like when you have submitted your paper and it has been 3 months, you have not heard about it from the editor, generate an email for inquiring the status, or say you got your reviewer comments, you still need some more time to respond to them, require an action, you are doing a resubmission, you want to add a resubmission cover letter, or it's been too long with this particular journal, you found a much better fit, you want to withdraw the paper from this journal before you can go ahead with the submission to the second journal. For all of these most common use cases, there are features where you have to give very minimal details, and Paperpal will help you generate these add-ons for your papers, saving you a lot of time. And when it comes to these emails, you don't even have to worry about AI generation or plagiarism. You can use the cover letter that is generated, or the inquiry email that is generated, almost as it is without much modifications to it. Now, let us assume that we have written the paper, we have done the basic proofreading checks, and then we have also added the necessary add-ons that are required for completing your submission package. Then comes the possibility with Paperpal where you can do your own plagiarism check. So you can just upload your completed manuscript, draft manuscript, and run a plag check, and you get a proper detailed plag report that tells you how much of plagiarism exists in which parts of your manuscripts and so on. And this plag report could be your guideline for revising your manuscripts to ensure that they are plag free, or at least the score stays within what is acceptable by majority of the journals, which is usually somewhere around 10 to 12%. The second check that is possible with Paperpal is this check called journal submission check, where you can upload your draft manuscript, and Paperpal will check your manuscript for close to these 30 different aspects, right from the author list, right from the title, right from the length of your paper, the quality of your references, if your references and citations are properly linked. And Paperpal being the language tool that it started out to be, it also thoroughly checks your manuscript for any language issues, and you get a report that looks something like this, where, let me just see if I have a report. So your report essentially has these features, and under each of these categories, I just upload paper while we discuss, and you just get a green tick or you get a red cross, and it tells you which of these sections you have really tackled properly and which of these sections require your attention. And based on this, you can revise, make additions, deletions, revisions to your manuscript to make sure that your manuscript is submission ready. And of course, this has to be used in conjunction with the journal submission checklist or the journal guidelines checklist to ensure that your paper is tailor made for the requirements of a particular journal. So this is how the report looks like. This is how it gets generated. So every single aspect gets checked, and then Paperpal tells you what is right, what is missing. And this paper that I have used seems to be missing quite a bit of things. And then you have this AI review feature, which can act as your mock peer reviewer. So no matter how careful you are in designing your manuscripts, at the end of the day, the peer review process is difficult for novice and experienced researchers alike, especially when you are tasked with some difficult researchers as peer reviewers, for instance. So this is a feature which will help you have access to critical peer reviewer comments beforehand, even before you submit it to the journal. So you finish writing your drafts, you check it for plag, you check it for the journal submission checklist, and then you also do a mock peer review on certain sections of your paper. It is not necessary that you should run these checks only at the end of your writing process. You can use this feature also to check your content as and when you write certain chunks of your text, to have the necessary critique that can help you improve on certain sections. So say for instance, I can use this feature to check the flow and structure of my entire manuscript. I can ask for suggestions where I feel certain sections need more inputs, or I can ask for improving certain sections of my paper. You don't have to always pick the pre-suggested options. You can also say, um, give your own suggestions. So help me improve the first paragraph. Or if you have labeled your paper appropriately under different sections and categories, then you can just ask the tool to look into the method section, look into the statistical analysis section, and give you inputs as to how this particular section can be improved. And this is the extent of review that you can get. And this is the comments that you get for a single paragraph. Yeah. So you can get feedback under different categories and a much detailed feedback. Now, this feedback will help you improve on the different sections of your paper, enabling you have a much better paper right during the initial submission. A good paper makes the editor happy, your peer reviewers are happy. Maybe it gives you a much better chance at getting your paper published at a shorter time and without much hassles, because you have already addressed the major concerns that could be raised with respect to your paper. So I guess I'm going to give you a 2 to 3 minute break to explore these final few features we talked about, the templates that we explored, and also the checks before we start taking questions. This kind of brings my part of the session to an end, I believe. And yeah, so go ahead, use these 2 3 minutes to explore these features, come back with questions. We'll take it up from
Thanks, Soumya. That was really useful. I'll just maybe answer a few questions that have been coming in. I think there was a question on how many attachments can you put into the right prompt box. Currently, we support a single one, but by the overwhelming ask, it looks like we'll be increasing that very soon. In chat PDF, similarly, you can chat with a single PDF right now, but that as well is something that we're working on expanding to multiple PDFs in the next 3 months. So that's coming up and something to look forward to. What I thought could also be useful is the edited file that was showcased. Just give me a second. Yeah. Soumya demonstrated, something called the pre-submission check, where you can simply upload your manuscript, upload your paper, and it will check against journal requirements. Here's what the completed edited file and report looks like. It takes a couple of minutes to run because it's very thorough and checks across multiple things. But it will give you a report like this. It's slightly zoomed out. But as you can see, it will give you a summary of everything that it's found. What it will also do is through the content on every page, it will actually give you as track changes. And I'm just showcasing PDF right now, but it comes as a Word file. So you can't see the track changes, but it will actually show you with track changes with inline comments and the actual language and where it can be enhanced. So that's something I definitely recommend everyone should try before you're submitting it either for an internal class assignment for the journal. Just make sure that you've not missed anything and you've covered all your bases.
there. So to add on to that, I can actually show the original report on the manuscript check process. So this is what it looks like. So this is the language suggestions where you see the edited file, but with track changes, so that you still have control as to which of these changes you want to allow and which of those you want to override and so on. And this is how the flag report looks like. So you get a report with, so this was a very small document, but then when you upload a proper document, which I might have, good. So this is how the plagiarism check report looks like. And this is your submission check.
Great. I see a lot of questions coming in and a lot of requests for the recording. So definitely you can expect both of those. I think we'll give it another minute before we move on. Soumya?
Yeah, we could.
Sure.
So can we go ahead and start taking questions, Nolita?
Yes, I think we have hit the 7 p.m. mark here in India. So we have about 30 minutes from now. Before we head into the questions, thanks, Soumya, for that fantastic demo. I picked up quite a few tips and ideas myself. It's always a pleasure to watch you at work. So I think before we actually move into the Q&A, and I know there are a lot of questions. What I really want to cover quickly is a special surprise we have for the audience. And I see some of you asking how long the Prime Access will be available for, amongst other things. So, what I wanted to mention is again, the Prime Access will be available for the audience until the 21st, that's tomorrow. So, you have 2 full days to try it out. In addition to that, what we have is a special offer for our audience. And here it is. So if you're purchasing PaperPal Prime for the first time, we're offering a 40% off, which you can kind of use the code that's available here. This will also be shared over email, and you can purchase any plan. So right from the monthly, quarterly, annual, you can purchase any plan and get 40% off. If you're already on a Prime plan, let's say on a monthly or a quarterly plan, it is already priced, 30 to 50% cheaper. The annual plan is already priced at 30 to 50% cheaper, but over and above that, you can get an additional 30% off with an offer that will be auto applied if you choose to upgrade from your account. So there you have it. So even if you're looking to use Prime after the 21st, we have you covered. Um, Lastly, we'd love to hear your feedback on today's session. As I said, it's a new format, and your feedback will help us improve and really make this more relevant and useful to you. So a link will be shared in chat. So please do share your feedback. We look forward to it. And there's a lot of feedback around what we can improve in the product, and how we could do more things. And we'd love to keep that conversation going. So we also have a Discord server on PaperPal where you can engage with me and the product team and all of us in an ongoing, kind of dialogue to improve the product, because that's what we really want to do. So please join that group. You can also test out the latest features that come out, and that's something that we look forward to. So with that, I think we can move over to the Q&A segment, and we have a lot of questions. So let's go. Okay. We may not be able to cover all of the questions here today, but let's take a stab at answering most of these between Soumya and me. I think the first series of questions, and maybe Soumya, I can take a stab at this and you can add on. There are a lot of questions on, will the content that's generated through PaperPal, right, show up as AI content? The second question is, I use Turnitin, and will it show up as AI generated in Turnitin? What if it's over 26%? What if I have my own ideas that I'm writing and I paraphrase it using AI, right? Will this be flagged as AI generated? Uh, and basically, these are very common questions we encounter all the time. um, what I encourage you to do is, firstly, don't be afraid of AI detection. Okay. And let me explain why. So the first thing that I recommend everyone should do is, whatever you're working on and you're using AI, go back and check your assignment guidelines, journal guidelines, or check with your professor or an editor in terms of how AI can be used in the process of preparing and writing your assignment or writing your paper. And these guidelines are typically published. So if you're following these and if you're disclosing these, then even if it shows up as AI generated content, you are okay. But remember what Dr. Soumya also covered: don't necessarily just copy paste what the AI has. It's okay to use and insert what the AI has generated in its entirety when you're brainstorming, when you're trying to develop a scaffolding, when you're trying to develop an outline, when you're trying to generate ideas. It's okay to even kind of take it in there when you're paraphrasing your own thoughts to bring in that fluency, right? But you may want to read it out aloud and see if it sounds like you. Has it captured your tone? Has it captured your voice? How would you edit it? How would you kind of say it? And I think these are very important aspects. And because today we've really come here to talk about literature reviews, I wanted to cover a very important aspect. That is, there's a great article by an author called Rachel Miles, and she talks about how you can't outsource your thinking process to AI. So today there is a very real, what do you say, temptation, and you have deep research, which can basically, in about 30 minutes, kind of spin out an entire comprehensive literature review for you. And you might just want to be tempted to take that and kind of edit it a little bit and pass it off. But that's not the way to do it, because when you take that shortcut, right, what happens is that you don't allow yourself to really deep dive into the literature. You don't allow yourself to develop an original point of view that you want to come across in your writing. So use that. Use, I know some folks mention other tools like Illicit or anything else for that matter. If you know PayPal itself, right, offers research back from about 250 million plus papers, and we update this daily. We have tie-ups with publishers. Use AI to find the relevant research. Use AI to probe, develop questions. What is it that you want to find? Identify, use it to shortcut and identify those top 15, 20, 30 papers that are relevant. Use Chat PDF, right, and the questions we have out there to actually understand those papers, go through those papers, and kind of develop your insights a lot quicker. But don't shortcut and kind of bypass the process. Don't miss the reading step. That's something that you need to develop a point of view. And if you do, you will automatically find that you're not using AI outputs as they are. Very important is, even if you're using Turnitin, and even if something shows up, right, as AI detected, and I see some comments, right, it shows 26% AI detected. Now Turnitin predominantly has been known and recognized in the industry for plagiarism checks. And in plagiarism, there is a very, very objective cutoff, either by a university or by a journal, saying plagiarism cannot exceed 15%, 20%, or whatever that threshold is. That doesn't necessarily apply to AI detection. If you have used AI in the way that it's allowed, if you have disclosed the use of it, if you have used it responsibly, then even though journal editors, professors might be using it to see that, has AI been used in the process, it's just a second check to say, okay, fine, if it was used, let me, take a second look, because today there is the real threat of paper mills, right? A lot of people just trying to kind of infuse into the research, right, all kinds of junk, and they need to catch that. And that's where they're using AI. So what I would suggest is AI detection tools, whether you're using Turnitin, whether you're using any other tool, there's no 100% tool that there's no tool that can 100% tell you that, hey, this is AI written, or this is good, or this is bad. Use it responsibly, disclose it, keep handy evidence of your writing. And if you're worried, right, actually engage in a dialogue with the editor, with your professor, whoever it is. But don't let benefits of AI detection or plagiarism hold you back from experiencing the benefits. So that's where I really wanted to address this in depth. It also came across as one of the the top questions in the this registration survey. So, Soumya, if you have anything to add to this, please, I'll hand over to you before we move on.
I think I would add the cliched sentence that you should use AI as the assistant and not hand over the reins to the AI as such. So I guess when you do that, it is better. You get the assistance. You get to leverage AI while keeping the core of the writing and your research to yourself. And when it comes to plagiarism checks and AI content checks, both of them have their flaws. Not just AI content check, even plagiarism checks do come with flaws because there are only so many different ways in which you can present a certain sentence, especially when you're talking about like hardcore subjects like some physical instruments, for instance. There are certain sentences that you cannot rephrase at all that shows up as plagiarism, which technically is not plagiarism. So similarly, when it comes to AI content detection, to add, yes, these content detectors have a lot of flaws because at the base, it is very difficult to differentiate between human written content and AI generated content. The flags are not concrete, they keep moving very dynamic, which means these tools are not perfect, but they exist. Journals use them, conferences use them, institutions use them, which means you will have to go into the guidelines, you will have to be transparent about AI use, and more importantly, we have to keep this conversation around AI use going so that going forward we can reach a consensus where we don't shun AI tools, we leverage them properly. And the AI score cannot be the only benchmark for determining how original a content is. But all of this, I guess, it will happen only with a lot more conversation with policymakers, with institutions, publishers, as such, I believe. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. It's having some trouble getting out of mute position. There's another question on how can we define Q1 or Q2 journals to be included for journal citations. Soumya, do you want to take this one?
Sorry, I did not get the question.
How can we define which Q1 or Q2 journals can be included for journal citations?
So you don't have to determine which of the journals, as long as they fall under the category, they are good enough. So you can set the filter to pick information. So if you are talking, I believe this is with reference to the research and site feature where we have a filter where you can set the quality of the journals that you're looking for. You can just set your quality to say up to Q3 journals, up to Q2 journals. Or if your field is not really mainstream, say you have very limited publications, then Q4 category also makes sense sometimes when you're working with something very marginal. So depending on your requirement, you decide which category fits best for your literature search, which articles you want. You set the filter, and then Paperpal ensures that you get answers, you get responses, papers only from within this category that you pick.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pick journals within the categories, you get to pick the category as such.
Yeah, and here I'd like to come in because there are a lot of other questions around, what database was used, are they legit references? Now, here again, I want to reiterate, under the research insight feature that Soumya demonstrated, um, PayPal only looks up, published papers for preprints, and we have tie-ups directly with, the journals themselves. So what happens is, as they come in, as they get published, they kind of flow into us. So these are legitimate. So unlike a chat GPT where it is very likely to hallucinate and really make it look like a real citation or a real reference and even format it in the way you like, if you probe in, you might find that that paper doesn't exist. But with PaperPal, you can ensure that whatever the research is recommending, you can actually see the paper, you can see related papers, you can click in, you can read the abstract. If it's an open access article, via our sister product, our Discovery, you can actually access the PDF, you can see summaries, you can translate it, you can do a whole lot more. So a lot, and all of this is grounded in the literature. There was another question on, can PayPal cite references like in APA format? To quickly reiterate, Soumya mentioned and showcased how we support over 10,000 formatting styles. So you can simply check the journal guidelines, what style you need to follow, and that journal citation style will be available within PayPal. So all of that is supported. Uh, the next question, this is a very interesting one. How does PayPal enhance your cognitive thinking? So I'm going to try and give this a shot, and Soumya, maybe you can take an outsider perspective. So I think in PayPal, the first principle that we try to follow is, we don't just give you a chat box and then give you paragraphs and paragraphs of content like a chat GPT. Which tends to encourage that shortcut, right, that we were talking about. What we really try and do is, there were templates that say, can you use your own notes, your own thoughts, and create an outline? Can you create a scaffolding? We encourage you to kind of take the research that you find, go into chat PDF, and actually give you a list of questions on how you can probe deeper. So you're not just asking it to summarize. A lot of people just go into chat GPT. They have to keep typing out a question, say, just summarize this for me. And they go with that summary. But we actually give you a preset list of questions that will allow you to deep dive into that paper from all angles with a single click. So this really helps you, as I was saying, build your point of view on what that paper has to say. Then again, when it comes into the writing process, yes, we support all kinds of writing, rewriting, paraphrasing, but the real objective is, we also try and look at with our editing, to try and give you some advice in terms of why those changes are being made. We give you options. So when we allow you to rewrite or paraphrase any text, we insist that you can do up to 500 words at a time, because that really forces you to look at how has the AI changed it, and forces you to kind of really review it. I wouldn't say we're there 100%, but these are the little steps that we're taking to really ensure people are using AI responsibly, and not really and kind of thinking closely also about what the AI has to offer. The last thing I'll quickly cover is the AI review, and that's one of the best features that we feel AI does. Right, it really forces you, if you just click on those questions, it doesn't give you an answer, it doesn't tell you, hey, just accept this and change that. It gives you advice. It's like a peer, like a professor, like someone who's been there, done that, kind of just giving you some advice, and can you look at it from this angle, can you explore that, I'll give you some examples. So this is how really we're bringing out use cases of AI in a very accessible way, that can enhance cognitive thinking but give you that boost, right, that AI has to offer. Soumya, anything you'd like to add here?
I think retaining your critical thinking and cognitive thinking and all such is a personal choice. At the end of the day, the tool allows you to be yourself. The tool has given you a lot of control over what happens to your content, but the choice is still yours. If you want to use Paperpal to simply summarize and generate entire literature reviews, maybe that is possible with the features at your disposal. But the question here is, do you want to do that? If you decide that, no, I'm not doing that, I'm using Paperpal to convey my ideas in a better way, using it as a buddy to brainstorm, using it as a supervisor to get appropriate review or appropriate comments to improve on my papers. That is how the tool is designed. So I guess at the end of the day, the choice is still with the user. You get to be on either ends of the spectrum. Where do you want to be? I think that's how I would look at it.
That's a great point of view. I like that. Cool. So we'll take a couple of questions around chat PDF and some things that have come in. I think there's a very interesting question. If the research is not published in an open access format, it breaks copyright laws to upload a PDF. Is that correct? So that's a great question. So what we do on PaperPal is a couple of things. If there is an open access article, and if the PDF can be hosted at our end, then we'll directly give you an option to chat with the PDF. So you don't even need to upload it. So you find the paper in PaperPal, you can click on chat PDF and do that. And we check for the rights of such open access articles and only then make it available. Now, if you are uploading this PDF, the one thing that we do is that we don't make this PDF accessible or shareable to anyone else. So it is not being used commercially in any way or being distributed in any way. The second thing that we're doing, it's not currently available, but will hit the product soon, is you will also have the ability to delete it, which means that any PDF that you've uploaded, if the source from which you're uploading it says that it should not be stored anywhere else, then you can actually delete it. So this is coming to the product very soon. The third thing that I'd like to mention is any derivative insights, right? Like any questions that you ask and that are the responses are all grounded, right, in the PDF. Any of this that also comes out is not used in any sort of training model in our database. It is strictly available only with you. So these are the ways in which we try and make Chat PDF as accessible to our users as possible, while ensuring we're not infringing on any kind of copyright distribution laws and issues. Um, there's a next question on, if I summarize some files and got some pretty text, which I verified from the scientific point of view as an expert, I want to use it in my future paper. Who retains the rights in the text? Should I obtain some permissions from Paperpal? So I think I'll answer this from two perspectives. So any content you generate on PayPal, questions from PDFs that are synthesized, we don't retain any rights in it, and you can see this in our terms and conditions. But how you use it and how you cite it, I think maybe Soumya, you can shed some light on that. If you're getting responses from a PDF, how do you typically incorporate it in your own writing?
Okay. So this is with regard to the chat PDF feature, I believe, with respect to the summarize option there. So I believe that the summaries that you get from the chat PDF feature should also be treated like AI generated content. So that summary is still AI generated, which means you still cannot use it as it is. That is the base. That is a quick way to get the answer from your paper. So instead of me having to spend 1 hour on a PDF reader to arrive at a specific answer, I get to interact with the paper like a living person. I get to ask the question, get to glean the summary in a very short time. But this summary is still just the suggestion or the crutch. I will still go back to the paper. I'll read the summary, then go back to the paper, maybe locate the original content from the paper, and the actual summarizing, the actual writing will still happen at the human end and not just a copy paste or a mere paraphrasing of the summary that you get out of the chat PDF. Then the content that you write essentially belongs to you. You wrote it, you summarized it. This is what has been happening for eons. So we read literature, we summarize information, we add the appropriate citations. It is still the same workflow. The only difference is that the time taken from the question to the initial summary has been reduced by tools like Paperpal. But the workflow remains the same, the ethical requirements remain the same, your citation and reference requirements remain the same. So I don't see how it is different between when you summarize and when an AI summarizes actually.
Great. I love that. And I think that's the key, right? How do you use AI to really optimize your process? I think the requirements for integrity, the requirements, the process, they have not really changed. But I think really educating yourself and figuring out, what's that fine line, right, is really important. Great. I think there are a couple of questions slash requests over here around, the content prepared by PayPal Research Insight is quite short. How can I make it longer? We're working on this, so we're looking to expand the length and give some control to users. This is on our roadmap. It should come in soon. Another question is around, is it integrated with Zotero? Can I import external references? Is it possible to highlight and export the articles you read on PaperPal? So we don't have a Zotero integration just as yet. We hope to get there within a couple of months. You can import external references, but not all at one go. So you can import them one by one or add them via DOI. But what you can do is you can export a single or all of the articles that you saved in PaperPal in your library using an export function. So on the research site, if you go into your library, there's a nice big export button up there. You can export all of them. So even though we don't support integrations with reference managers at the moment, we make sure that you can take whatever you find out of PaperPal back into your reference manager so you can keep track of it. There's another question around, can PayPal search for analytical formulas in scientific papers within chat PDF? This is supported to some extent. It depends on how this is embedded. So you can try that out and give us feedback in terms of how it's working. Um, and there was a couple of questions, right, around being able to organize a lot of the PDFs that you're uploading and saving them. So this is something that's work in progress. We just released the chat PDF feature a couple of months ago. So we're getting to that in terms of being able to, offer you the ability to create folders, save, export your references. I see a lot of hearts there. So I got the answer. We'll be getting that soon, including the ability to chat with multiple PDFs. So we're looking for a lot of insight in terms of how do you want to use this. So if you like, please reach out to us, write to us, and let us know how this would be useful so that we can build it right. So that's great. Um, there's a question on, can we develop a customized literature review draft by sharing the folder of journal articles? As I said, we will be supporting, basically chatting with multiple PDFs that will allow you to extract insights, maybe at, as Soumya said, instead of one paper at a time, maybe a couple of papers at a time. But then again, our process is not that we will generate a literature review. What we'll allow you to do, or really support, is be able to help you capture those notes effectively, put them into notes, and then use those, right, to synthesize and create your outline. Uh, this is a good question that I want to take. I know we just have a couple of minutes, so I think this is important on the ethical use and declaring use of AI. When generally asked for declaring AI use, do we need to mention PaperPal? So I think, Soumya, in your experience, can you talk a little bit about how does declaration work, and what is it that you need to mention, and how can one really go about doing that?
Yeah. So when we look into the publisher guidelines, I guess as far as you use AI for proofreading, for language corrections, for reformatting your sentence structures, most of the publishers, they don't require you to actually declare the use of an AI tool, and that as well applies to PaperPal. So when we look at the five phases that we were talking about today, ideation requires no declaration whatsoever. The proofreading does not really require declaration. Your checks do not require declaration. Your final templates do not require declaration. The only place where it gets tricky is when you use tools like Paperpal to create large chunks of text within your manuscript. That is when it can get problematic. But even then, I don't think a declaration as such is required by most of the publishers, because this falls under the category of AI checks. So when you use language tools and when you have kept your AI content to the minimum, to the ideal number, which keeps changing between publishers and journals, as long as that criteria is adhered to, most of the publishers are okay with you using language tools, AI language tools, for making changes to your manuscript, as long as it is not just huge chunks of text. So in one line, I believe when you use Paperpal, right, you don't have to really declare the use of Paperpal, and you'll still be okay with most of the publishers and journals.
Thanks, Soumya. So I would also recommend, though, go to the journal guideline and see what is it that they're spelling out. So I think, as Soumya mentioned, if you're using it to, simply like edit your content and do a lot of that, and you're using it responsibly, you're okay. But sometimes there are very specific use cases. If you're using it, the journals typically will specify it in the guidelines. So whichever journal you're submitting to, and they've gotten really good at, evolving their guidelines, I would say just give it a read, and that's always the best bet to ensure that you're safe. Um, if you're someone who's not necessarily looking to publish in a journal, and I know that we have a couple of students and master students, etc., around, and you're working on class assignments, then the rules might slightly change. Most assignments today come with an AI policy or use. So check that. There are a lot of frameworks out there, traffic light systems on red, green, yellow, amber, what's accepted, what's not. So get that clarity if you're unsure from your professor, from your lecturer, and then that ensures that you're in a safe space. So that's what I had to add. We'll take one last question, which is something that we didn't necessarily also cover in the demo. Where is it best to work with PaperPal? Is it web or the Word plugin version? So what I'm excited to share with you is PaperPal is not just available on web. It is available on Word as an add-in, so you can just work in Word and you can have all of the PaperPal features that Dr. Sowmiya demonstrated today available within Word. But we are also now available on Google Docs, where currently we support the feature for editing, where you can accept reject suggestions. So it's a Google Doc extension, so it works within your Google Docs. And if you work in LaTeX in Overleaf, we also support editing over there. So we're trying to increase our reach to wherever you are, and this will only increase in the coming months. But we're already in these places, and you can definitely use it to edit your content everywhere. So if you're writing in Word, if you're writing in Overleaf, if you're writing in Google Docs, you have PaperPal's editing language suggestions, everything that's available there. Now, specifically between web and Word, what the team recommends is that if you already have a doc that's written in Word and you're trying to finalize it, and it has many figures, then you may want to just use the Word add-in, because that will allow you to stay within the formatting, everything that you have, and use it very seamlessly, right, without interfering with a lot of that. But if you're in the early stages, you're developing your draft, then as Soumya shared, right, the web also offers a lot of capabilities and richness in terms of what all it can do, the expansion of the sidebar, some really cool things in there. You can try out chat PDF, etc. So you can use the web version as well. So I think really depending on how close to the final document you are, you can choose which one to work with. So that actually, I know we've not addressed all of the questions, but that brings us to the end of today's session. I think we're on time at 90 minutes. Soumya, any last thoughts for our audience before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I always end my sessions with this one thought, not mine borrowed. So the problem is not the technology here. The problem is how you use the technology. And if you really do want to start somewhere when it comes to using AI for your research, Paperpal is a very good place to start, I would say. So love the tool personally, not because I'm working with the team, even otherwise happens to be one of my favorite tools. So yeah, do give it a try. That's my last word here.
Great last words. I'd also encourage that. And if you have any feedback, as I said, please reach out, to us. We always look forward to your feedback. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a lovely evening, rest of the day. We look forward to seeing you at our next session. Thank you.